Tuesday, May 7th. Let's see. You are getting a new book today that you get to hold on to. This one will be yours. You get to keep the Outsiders book. It's yours also. This is a much shorter book that we'll get into and talk about in a moment. Home children, if you're not alive right now, I do have your Outsiders test graded and up on Skyward. And finally, one more day of testing, and we're finally done with all these shenanigans. And we get to move past it, so last time is tomorrow. Yay. Same schedule we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Hi, Elliot.
So on the last week of school, if we're already done with everything, what are we gonna do?
Have we gotten there yet?
No, but like, I'm sorry.
What are you asking for, man?
So
I'm
again,
not asking for anything.
you'll go from here to second period, and then second to third, skip fourth, then 5, 6, 7 with the short periods. And then, let's see, on there, hopefully you did not leave your post-it note on the outside of the book, because then bad things will happen to it. And then Avery will have you move over to here, or stand so that you can work, and that's fine with me. And so, next week, those of you who have a lot of B points, we're going to have an option if you would like to spend those B points. I will be going out to probably Costco and seeing what they have for sale. These are the things that we did last year. And so if you have under 25 points, you can't buy anything. It's only for those kids who have more than 25 points. And I will try to buy bigger and differenter things that you're welcome to have access to if you want, including up to if you want to ride on my podium, but you have to have 100 B points to do that because you have to pay 75, but then you become a permanent part of my room and get to leave your little message on there forever and ever and ever. If you're the kid who wants to be part of the Century Club, then the last day of school, May whatever it is, at 4 o'clock, you still have to have 100 B points attached to you. If you do, you get your name permanently added over here into the new list, and you'll become a permanent part of the Century Club. Next year, that means you get to write in this big area over there. And if any kid gets to write here, well, any 8th grader gets to write in that area, but only those kids in the Century Club get to write over there. But that's my way of trying to help out those kids who have B points. If you want to spend them, then I'll try to do that next week, because I'll go to Costco, because I just got a membership this weekend.
Yes.
So excited. Yeah, for my birthday.
Whoa, when was your birthday?
Let's see. It's coming up. It's not yet. But my father-in-law got it for me. Let's see. We're good to go in here test-wise. We've all finished that one. Yay to there. Book. So whenever you hear me refer to Twttin, like over here where it has Twttin and Twttin, it's the name of the book. If you look at your book cover where it says that was then, this is now, I just shortened it. So that's why you have the TWTTIN, so Twttin. So just to hopefully prevent you being confused, that's what I'm referring to. And that is just an old book cover. I actually kind of like your current book cover better, because that has like 3 of the main characters on there. I have no idea how that book cover would connect. It's kind of weird, but alright. So with this book, to give you guys some information as we get into it, it is a shorter, faster read than Outsiders. If you take a look at it, it's only like 150 pages. The print is actually a little bit bigger. It has 11 chapters as opposed to the 12 chapters. In theory, I mean, we only have, after this week, 2.5 weeks left of school, plus the last 4 days, we have a different activity we're going to be doing anyway. So technically, we have like 2 weeks left with you guys before we get a chance to be done. Zoops.
We're off on Monday, then go back Tuesday.
That's how time works. You are
No,
correct.
I
Yes, we're off on Monday, then come back on that Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'm gonna buy it though.
This is a sequel to The Outsiders.
Shouldn't be.
It takes place in the same town. It'll be 2 years afterwards. So Outsiders, Ponyboy is a freshman, and in this one, they're going to talk about Ponyboy. He shows up as a friend. Here, he is a junior. So he goes from 9th grade to 11th grade. There are some characters that cross over. Ponyboy is one. If you remember from the Shepherds, Curly Shepherd was the younger one who kept getting in trouble or in jail. He is like the main bad guy in this one. Randy, who was Bob's friend, shows up in just one little scene. It's mostly following brand new characters. It's going to follow this main guy whose name is Brian, and he's the big guy on the front that looks kind of like Derry, and he's going to refer to himself as this big guy. And then he has a shorter guy, that's the one on the front cover to the right, whose name is Mark, that's his best friend. And then the girl on the other side is Kathy, his girlfriend. They are not socias, they are not greasers, they are neither one. Turns out that in that high school, not everyone was a soc or a greaser. It was just those were the two main groups fighting. There was a whole bunch of people in the middle, and these kids were in the middle. They're still poor. He'll come right out and tell you he's poor, but he's like, I'm not a greaser. That's just a different kind of kid that was in our neighborhood or in our school. He knows them and hangs out with them, but does not consider himself part of them. Hi, Daryl.
Yeah. You said he was poor? Like, you can't even afford $3, bro.
Well, that's because this was a long time ago, so we're going to find out $3 is closer to like $60
Is it
now.
during the Great Depression?
Yeah. No. This one takes place, even though it's supposed to be 2 years after The Outsiders, it kind of time jumps about 10 years, because it's going to deal more with like hippies in the 60s, which we'll get to here in a moment, and hippies play a big role with the tie-dye and the paisley and stuff like that. Overall, it's a fairly short, fast read. Those of you who don't hate reading, this is one that you can probably finish in a day. Those of you who are not as fond of reading, we'll try to do our best to try and help you out, but this is a fairly speedy book overall.
What is the point of coming to
Look,
school?
it's in your bag.
My mom
Oh,
made
you have to read one.
Where'd you go?
So again, those of you who read it or have read Outsiders, this will hopefully work along the same lines for you. So, I do not remember reading Outsiders. I know I read it when I was in junior high and I remember things connected to it, but I don't have big memories of it. This book I have bigger memories of. This is the first book I remember making me cry when I read the book. And it's not even from a death. There is death in this book, but it wasn't the death that had an impact on me. It's the thing we're going to talk about in a moment. And don't guarantee it's going to have that same connection with you. It'll depend on what your home life is like. This just really connected to me in my home life, which was a bit of a struggle, and so it hit close to home. For you guys, it may not hit close to home. I like teaching. This book is sort of how I sum up teaching. This is my way of passing along my final message to you. I purposely end my year with this book, because of conversations we are going to get to have because of what happens in this book. With what's going to get into it, I'm going to not spend all of our time reading. We're going to be doing conversations also. If you know past kids who have been in my class or past siblings, and they have talked about like my stories I tell at the end of the year, and I do end the year telling stories. I've been arrested before, and I will be telling you stories about me getting arrested and what led to my choices in life and things along those lines. This book is why I started telling those stories in the first place, because of conversations I had with kids from this. This book is why I tell all those stories. I know I mentioned this with you guys a little bit before. When I first started teaching, I was unaware of what level of trauma and crap kids go through. And I have a lot of kids who come talk to me after school and talk to me through Remind, and I find out way more about kids than I ever thought I would. I know I have 7th graders this year who are involved in poor choices. Drinking and smoking, pot, stuff like that is way more common than it should be. I absolutely know I have 8th graders because they come back and talk to me on a regular basis, usually after they've gotten in trouble, but I have kids who come back and talk to me. I will tell you right now, by the time you get to high school, you will have a friend who has started doing drugs or drinking. It's guaranteed. By the time you get to your freshman, sophomore year of high school, it happens. If you don't believe me, if you have older siblings, ask them. If you have older friends, ask them. It's going to happen. I'll tell you right now, by this time of your 8th grade year, you will know a classmate who drinks or smokes pot. It's a thing that is going to happen. So what happens in this book is it's not about kids getting beat up so much, although that does happen a little bit. This book is, what do you do when your best friend in the world has a horrible home life, and as you start to learn more about it, they go down the path of drugs and alcohol. We've been teaching you guys since you were young to say no to drugs. Every kid knows you say no to drugs. That's easier said than done. When it's your best friend and their life is falling apart and you don't want to ditch your best friend, what do you do in that case? That's what this book gets into. What do you do when it's your best friend and you don't want to leave your best friend behind? That's what hit close to home for me. I was in 8th grade when I found out that my best friend was going on this path. And my best friends were making choices that scared me. And I had to decide between me being a good kid or giving up my best friends. And that's what hit because of what happens in this book. For some of you, you might have a life where this is a complete fictional make-believe thing you don't have to worry about. And in that case, it just gets to be a fun story. For others of you, this story is going to hit a little bit closer to home because you may know things that are happening along these lines. So that is going to be leading into this. Here's my issue. You guys make me care about you. Teaching is a lot easier if you don't like kids. It is way easier if you don't like kids because then you don't have to worry what goes on in your guys' lives. Unfortunately, you make me like you. And by liking you, I worry about some of your futures because I listen when people talk. I listen when kids talk. I probably know more about some of your lives than you think I know because I listen more than I talk. And because of that, I'm scared for some of you about the choices that are ahead of you. And I want to help guide you. This book and the conversations we're going to have from it is my last time of trying to have any impact or any influence on you. So that's why I end with this book. It's a bit more adult than The Outsiders is. That's why most teens don't bother getting into it because it brings up some pretty dark conversations. But they're conversations that I would like to get into with you guys as we move forward. There is death, it does have fighting, it does have stuff like that in it, but from there, it's in general, the main character, Brian, let's back up. Ponyboy, I think overall was a pretty nice kid. The main character of this book, Brian, is not such a nice kid. He's kind of a jerk. He's a player, he's not nice to ladies, and stuff like that, and he puts himself out there as, I'm not a good person. And that's partly what I like about the book, is he doesn't try to come across as a perfect person. He comes across as fairly true to life. Those of you who hate reading, I will put the audiobooks up for you again. So if you are wanting to listen to the audiobooks as we go through, that is fine with me. I'll be more than happy to try to give you guys a chance to do that. It'll also have a copy of the ebook, so you can open it on your iPad in case for whatever reason you need to look at the book. You can. I will try to put that along with all the audiobooks there to help you guys out. Then, let's get a chance to actually start the book. Unless those of you who had questions, I just wanted to finish my talking before we got to it. Anyway. Super.
Do you know Matt Fraser that you had last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me about the news.
That's fun. I expect most kids will probably have, if you know someone who's come through my class, yeah, they probably have talked. And if you don't know anything about my class, then that's the thing that not everyone does know. But when you asked about what I do with the last week, I tell stories. We end my teaching about a week ahead of time, and then I spend that last week telling you stories about my childhood and what made me who I am. I was arrested 3 times when I was a kid by the time I was 18. I've made poor choices. I come from a screwed up home life. And so because of that, I tell you stories about what made me who I am to try so help you guys not necessarily make the same poor choices I did. So, yeah. Like Mr. Jackson's stories, but with more getting arrested and bad choices involved.
I don't like his stories. They're
Well,
so repetitive.
hopefully mine are slightly less repetitive, but we'll see.
A little more fun.
Alright.
What are they? Even though we haven't started the stories yet.
And to make this book even better for you, it starts on page 9. So it's even shorter than what you thought. Yes. So with this book, it is set, again, like Outsiders was set way back in the past. This one's also set in the past, just not quite the 50s. It's more into the 60s when we're going to get into things like hippies and stuff like that. But it's also in a moment we're going to talk about not having $3 I'm going to show you that $3 back then was not the same as $3 today.
Isn't that like $20 today or something
We're
like
going
that?
to find out in a moment. I'll show you.
Used to be able to-
So main character is getting ready to walk into a bar. He is all of 16, and he likes to try to go into bars to drink alcohol at 16. So again, we don't always make good choices. But he's looking for what he calls a plainclothes cop. This is what today we refer to as like an undercover cop. So that's what I mean by a plainclothes cop. When I was Googling plainclothes cop, that's what came up. It kind of made me smile. Chapter 1. Mark and me. So again, if looking at the front, Mark is the guy that's going to be in the dark shirt, and then Brian is the main guy that's talking to you in the white. Mark and me went down to the bar/pool hall about 2 or 3 blocks from where we lived with the sole intention of making some money. But we'd done that before. I was a really good pool player, especially for being just 16 years old. And what's more, I look like a baby-faced kid who wouldn't know one ball from another. This, and the way Mark set me up, helped me hustle a lot of pool games. The bad deal is, it's against the law to be in this pool hall if you're underage, because of the adjoining bar. The good deal is, the bartender and owner was a good friend of mine, being the older brother of this chick I used to like. When this chick and me broke up, I still stayed friends with her brother, which is unusual in cases like that. Charlie, the bartender, he was just 22. But he had a tough reputation and kept order real good. We lived in kind of a rough part of town, and some pretty wild things went on in Charlie's bar. I looked around for a plainclothes cop, again, undercover cop, when we went in. I can always tell a cop, but didn't find one, so I went up to the bar and hopped on a bar stool and called on Daryl. Yes, Daryl.
What's a moccasins?
We're not there yet. You're just going to have to wait. That's the drawback to when you read ahead. You don't get my pictures yet.
What page are you on?
I'm on
14.
page. Yeah, he's a little farther.
I'm on 11.
Yeah, well, I'm on 10. Give me a beer, I said. And Charlie, who was cleaning glasses, just like every bartender you ever see, gave me a dirty look instead. Okay, the Coke. Your credit ain't so hot, Brian, Charlie said. You got cash? A dime! For crying out loud, can't you let me charge a dime Coke? Cokes are 15 cents, and you already got $3 worth of Cokes charged here. And if you don't pay up this month, I'll have to beat it out of you. He said it real friendly like, but he meant it. We were friends, but Charlie was a businessman too. I'll pay up, don't worry. Charlie gave me a lopsided grin. I ain't worried, kid. You're the one who should be worried. I was, to tell the truth. Charlie's a big, tough guy, so a $3 beating up was something to worry about. So, to pause real quick with our whole how things work here. So, the cost of a Coke, 10 cents. And $3 worth of Cokes, those of you who can do math, how many Cokes did he buy?
A lot.
30 Cokes. So that should hopefully, those of you who have your math NWEA tomorrow, hopefully we can go through that whole, $30 divided by 10. He says that now 15 cents, but we're just going to do 10 cents to make the math a little bit easier. So let's say if you go out to a restaurant, and I'll even try to make it on the low side. Let's say a cost of a Coke today, if you go to like a restaurant, is $2. If you want to say $3, fine with me. So if you order 30 Cokes, this sounds like a really bad NWA word problem. 30 Cokes at $2 a piece, how much would that be?
$60.
There you go. If you say the Cokes were $3 a piece, how much would that be?
90.
90.
So it gives you an idea that's how much he owes. He doesn't really owe $3. In nowadays money, it'd be closer to like $60 to $90. So the guy's saying like, I'm gonna beat you up. He's not. You're like $3, Mr. Broviak. I borrow that from you every day. That's not the same thing. Here it's yeah, $60 to $90. That's probably more of a reason to get beat up. Plus, Charlie's a little violent, but we'll get there. Let's see. I was, to tell the truth. Charlie's a big, tough guy, so a $3 beating up was something to worry about. Hey, Mark, Charlie called. There ain't nobody here to hustle. Now, Mark, who'd been scouting out the 2 guys playing pool, came up and sat down next to me. Yeah, that's the truth. It's just as well, Charlie said. You guys are going to get in real bad trouble one of these days. Some guy's going to get hacked off when he finds out what you're doing, and you're going to get a pool stick rammed down your throats. Out of curiosity, do you guys remember what foreshadowing means?
Yes,
Yeah, it's like
like
a hint towards
Oh,
the
it's
future.
gonna happen in the future.
No, I just randomly just want to make sure you guys remember what words mean. That's
Uh-huh.
all.
Nah, bro.
No, we ain't, Mark said. Give me a Coke, Charlie. We don't have any credit, I said glumly. Mark stared at Charlie disbelievingly. You gotta be kidding. Man, when did we ever not pay our bill? Last month. You said you'd add it on to this month's. That's what you said. So I don't see why you can't add 20 cents to that. 30 cents, corrected Charlie. And like I just told Brian, if I don't get that money pretty soon, I'm going to take it out of a couple of highs. I'll get you the money tomorrow. If you give us the Cokes right now. Okay. Charlie gave in to Mark. Almost everybody does. It was a gift he had. A gift for getting away with things. He could talk anyone into anything. But if I don't get the money by tomorrow, I'm going to come looking for you. I got chilled. I'd heard Charlie say that to another guy once. I also saw the guy after Charlie found him. But if Mark said he'd have $3 by tomorrow, he'd have it. Speaking of looking for you, Charlie continued, the true flower child was in here asking for you. Eminem? What did he want? How would I know? Man, that is a weird kid. A nice guy, but weird. Yeah, Mark said. I guess it would be hard to be a hippie in a hood's part of town. Speak for yourself, man, Charlie said. This part of town don't make nobody a hood. You're right. That really sounded profound there for a minute, huh? Charlie just gave him a funny look and got us the Cokes. It was later in the evening now, and some more customers came in, so Charlie quit talking to us. It got pretty busy. I've mentioned hippies. You guys know what hippies are?
Yeah, it's like the tie-dye, like, you know that peace symbol thing?
Yeah. And so those, I think we've even done like dress-up days with hippies and stuff like that. But that is what they're going to talk about. This book is taking place right when hippies started to take off. And hippies were big into drugs and the idea of freedom. They were also at the time big into protests on school campuses, just like we're seeing right now.
Oh, like today? The one in New York, right?
There you go. And so that all sort of started with this group of people, and they're all like, we're against war, because this was, ooh. Do you guys know what big war was going on they were protesting?
Vietnam War.
Nicely done. So yeah, they were protesting that Vietnam War. Avery?
Oh, and you know like the symbol, it's supposed, I think it's supposed to be like, the two.
The little peace sign thing?
Yeah, it's supposed to, I think it's like, no, something like nuclear
what?
bombs.
It was. It was connected to nuclear. It was connected to the nuclear bombs and trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You were correct.
No.
Yes.
And the top left, is that South Park?
That is South Park, because they had an episode where Cartman hates the hippies and tries to chase them
A
out.
little festival?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the drum circle.
Yeah.
Wait, how do you guys know that?
It's a good
Steve
show.
King, you guys did.
See.
You will take my daughter.
Bro, we have like 4 minutes. Yeah, see?
Ah,
If you did right.
it got pretty busy. Where are you going to get $3? I asked Mark. He finished off his coat. I don't know. That bugged the heck out of me. Mark was always pulling stunts like that. Man, I ought to know. Mark had lived at my house ever since I was 10 and he was 9, and his parents shot each other in a drunken argument. My old lady felt sorry for him and took him home to live with us. My mother wanted 100 kids and could have only one. So until she got hold of Mark, she had to be content feeding every stray cat that came along. There was no telling how many kids she might have picked up along the line if she could have afforded more than 2, me and Mark. So he's going to refer to Mark as his brother throughout the story, but we'll find out that they're not actual brothers. It's just that his parents shot each other. They got drunk and shot each other and killed each other, and he was then basically homeless, and so Brian's mom just brought him into her house instead. It wasn't even an official adoption. It was just back then. She was like, you want to come over here and hang out for the rest of your life? And he said, okay. And so he came over. And that was just sort of the things we
How
liked.
did this, bro?
Things were a little different back then. I'd been friends with Mark long before he came to live with us. He lived down the street, and it seemed to me that we'd always been together. We'd never had a fight. We'd never even had an argument. In looks, we were complete opposites. I'm a big guy, dark hair and eyes. the kind who looks like a St. Bernard puppy, which I don't mind, as most chicks cannot resist a St. Bernard puppy. Mark was small and compact, with strange golden eyes and hair to match, and a grin like a friendly lion. He was much stronger than he looked. He could tie me in arm wrestling. He was my best friend, and we were like brothers. If you're unfamiliar with a St. Bernard puppy, this is what a St. Bernard is. It's the big, friendly, fluffy dog. And that's how the main character describes himself. He's big and friendly, and chicks dig him because they're like, oh, you're so adorable. His friend, the other smaller guy, is Mark, and he's more like a lion, blonde and kind of scary, and people kind of get freaked out by him.
He's a segment.
Sure. Elliot.
So are these the ones that live in those like high mountains that live in
With a little thing around their necks. Oftentimes they are.
Wasn't there one that like got attacked by like a whole group of coyotes and stuff?
There was. I didn't see about that
Vegas
recently.
chickens or something like that.
Yeah. We're going to stop there. We'll pick up with our big St. Bernard.
So what do you want me to read to?
Nowhere? So let's do this. If you want to read, you can. It's just like with Outsiders, you